Welcome to Finding Ourself, a podcast about the power of presence, connection, and the transformation that is only possible through touch. So, if you're curious about human connection, somatic healing, or what it really means to belong, you're in the right place. Let's find ourselves together. Well, hello, and welcome to another one of our podcast episodes. This is Finding Ourself with Keely and Michelle, a heartfelt podcast from Cuddlist. We today have, of course, Keely and Michelle, your hosts, but we also have an incredible guest named Reina with us. You've heard our introductions before, but I would love to get a moment to have you introduce yourself, Reina. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Hi, Keely and Michelle. Thank you so much for having me on this podcast. My name is Reina Hitotoki, and I work as a relationship, intimacy, and sexuality coach. And I've been a cuddle therapist with Cuddlist for about a year and a half now. And I call myself embodied intimacy therapist, which includes cuddle therapy. And I also work as a tantric practitioner and psychedelic facilitator.
You have so many hats. It's so cool. You're bringing such a rich, body of work in addition to the Cuddlist work. It's such an asset. I'm so glad that you're on with us today. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, I feel it's such an honor to be here amongst, yeah, you two that are
Yeah.
really cool people that I want to get to know better. So,
Well,
Can you
well, go
oh,
ahead. Go ahead, Michelle.
I was
No,
gonna say, can you share, because I resonate with your big umbrella of intimacy work so much, can you, share with us how did you get to Cuddlist? Like, what was your path? Was that where you s I
oh,
started there, but I'm having a feeling that that's not where you started, that's just something that was additionally added, so how did you get here?
yeah. So if I really backtrack, my childhood was really tumultuous and it was a quite violent one. I had a lot of trauma around touch, both from lack of touch and nurturing touch, as well as touch that I received through physical as well as sexual violence. And then, there was this question of what do you want to be when I grow up? And I knew that I wanted to become a therapist. So I went to school for clinical social work and I first became a traditional talk therapist. And I did a lot of trauma work, trauma therapy with kids and families, adults. And that was good, but I knew that there was something missing. I hit a wall because emotions live in our bodies and they get blocked in our bodies. And we're dealing with emotions through the intellect and verbal processing through psychotherapy. And psychotherapy, I mean, talk therapy, there is definitely a time and place for that, and it's beneficial for so many people. But I knew that there was a missing link, and that link was nurturing physical touch. Because touch, as we know, has so much potential healing power. It's immediate, it's tangible, and so after I worked as a psychotherapist, I actually left that field and went into behavioral and mindfulness research. But I always knew I wanted to go back into the healing work. But when it was time for me to do that, I knew I wanted touch to be such an integral part of the healing work. And I knew about Catalyst from the various advocacy and publicity work you've been doing, and I've been really curious about it for a long time, but I couldn't quite pull the trigger. But there's a lot of things personally happening in my personal life too, and I actually got laid off from my research job about a year and a half ago. My position was grant funded, and the grant funding ran out. And I took it as an opportunity to really dive into the vision of what I want to do in my life. So I became a certified life coach, specializing in relationships, intimacy, and sexuality. And the work that I've been doing with Cuddlist is such a dream come true for me to be able to integrate healing touch in the work that I do. So, and then I also have a background in meditation, and I'm a certified mindfulness meditation teacher, dance and somatics and movement, and sacred sexuality. So I weave in all the different parts from my background into the work that I do.
It's an incredible story. Yours is an incredible story, and I also hear themes in it echoed in a in kind of an energy or a zeitgeist, this and it resonates with me too, of this psychotherapy being recognized as so important, the vital work that you started off doing, right?
Mhm.
But then feeling a missing piece. We hear that line so much. There's something
Mhm.
missing, and we can feel
Yeah,
it, and we feel it in our bodies, and it's our first
right.
clue in.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I love hearing, and also thank you for sharing so vulnerably. Thank you for sharing so
Mm.
honestly about that journey and
Thanks
the
for
bravery
hearing
it
it.
took once you got laid off to jump in. I'm curious about
Mhm.
what that was like, that entrepreneurial piece of it, like, yeah.
It's been the scariest thing and the greatest thing that I've done in my life, and it's been so liberating. I actually, there there was a lot of things going on in my personal as well as professional life, and I got laid off at the end of a 6 months medical leave. I was dealing with a lot of health things, and so when I got that layoff notice at the end of my medical journey and medical leave, sorry, I was devastated. But it was really a blessing in disguise. And when when life throws you a big curveball, it's usually an opportunity to rebuild your life in a way that you truly want to. And I've been blessed to be with, so I've been able to do that. So.
Mhm. I get this image of a bouncy ball, right, in my head, like, sometimes the harder you get thrown down, the higher you bounce back up, kind of.
Right. Yeah. Oh, that's a beautiful image.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
love it. Oh, go ahead, sorry.
I was just gonna say, I'm noticing, in the training, the Cuddlist training, as
Mhm.
I'm the director of training, but I've been doing a lot of the cohorts, like
Mhm.
training in the cohort or like doing being the trainer. And
Mhm.
there's such a common enough theme that I just want to point it out here that we are seeing a lot of people from either the talk therapy world or they were working that journey in college, that was their direction that they wanted to go, and they
Yeah.
were finding that they wanted to shift that path a little bit. So I think there's a momentum, it feels like, that's happening a little bit, which is interesting. As somebody who hangs out in the talk therapy conference world, Keely and I do a lot of that. Um,
Yeah.
one of my pet peeves is they're so excited to talk about psychedelics, and I love psychedelic work. I think it's super powerful. I'm glad it's being talked about, but I get this sense that like, ooh, we're edgy. We're going to talk about psychedelics, and I'm like, when are you going to be edgy and talk about touch?
Right. Yeah.
Like, that would be to
Mhm.
me, it's less edgy than psychedelics. I don't know why. And
So
I've
touch
had
connection.
my own healing journey in the psychedelic world, and I'm like, touch is such a basic human need, experience, also tied to so much, trauma and abuse,
Mhm.
right? Why are we still avoiding it?
Yeah.
Like, let's
Why
be really edgy and start talking about how to re-engage with touch in a way that's empowered and embodied and in reparative,
mhm.
because
Yeah.
it is that missing link.
Right. Right. There's so much taboo around touch, and there's also, I feel, some taboo around intimacy. That
Absolutely.
intimacy is something that you only have with lovers or, family members, mother, child, but it's not something that you can develop with another adult in a healthy way. Um, Yeah, and then you can get the emotional intimacy with a psychotherapist or a friend, and you can get physical intimacy through, let's say, massage therapy. But why not offer both in a package, emotional and physical intimacy? And I think that's the work that we all are doing.
What is some of the feeling difference as a practitioner from so the more clinical setting you started in, right? You started in
Yeah,
a very traditional path,
yeah.
and now it's so different. What does that feel like?
It feels really liberating and amazing to finally step into my own power and not have society dictate what I need to be and where I need to conform. I grew up in Japan where the culture is very conformist. So all my life I expended so much energy trying to fit into molds that people have um, uh, put in front of me. And yeah, when my health crashed, my personal life was really coming down. I really needed to remake myself in a way that was most authentic to me. And I didn't want to make any compromises this time. So I had a choice as somebody who has a background in clinical social work to get my clinical licensure and to become a licensed clinical social worker, or just let go of all of those molds and just be completely independent, and be my own boss, or become a self-employed touch therapist. And I went back and forth. I agonized over it for a while, but I knew when I really meditated and got in touch with myself that I was going to choose the latter and just forge a path where there's no path in front of me.
How
Yeah, I
did the
think
people in your life react?
that's a great question. My daughters think it's really amazing that at my age, I'm 45, but I'm able to do a big career shift in midlife and do something so unique. They're so supportive of my work, but they also know how there's misconceptions around it, and how different and unique this work is. And so my daughters are my biggest supporters. And my friends, I am part of this dance community where people are really well versed in somatics and the importance of nurturing touch and movement. So they all think it's amazing that I do this work. And in terms of other people that I know from other parts of my life, hmm, I'm actually not sure. I haven't started having those conversations yet. Yeah, since I started doing this work. Remains to be seen.
I love that
I
you've got support. I love that you have so much robust support.
yeah.
I
Yeah.
had a lot from my immediate family and from, like, my closer inner circle, and I was kind of insulated when I first made the transition, and I didn't
Mhm.
realize how much criticism again, this is back in 2015, right?
Uh,
But
yeah.
then there was this craze at the time where on
Mm,
Facebook you would post this, like, anonymous answers link, and so
mhm.
people could enter in, like, an anonymous comment about you. It was, like, a very
Uh-huh.
big trend for, like, 3 months or whatever it was.
Oh,
And I
wow.
did that, and I had people saying, "I can't believe you brought so much, like, shame and disgrace to your family by doing this profession." I was like,
Really?
"What?"
Oh,
I
wow.
posted that and my entire family was like, "We don't feel that way." It was very good to see that support, but I was kind of shocked to have, like,
Yeah.
such a pushback because 'cause I'm like, clearly there's a disconnect, right? Because
Yeah.
if you knew
Yeah.
me well enough, and if
Mhm.
you knew what I'm doing well enough, you would really love it. And you would
Yeah.
really so there's a way in which how we talk about this is hard for some people to connect to, or hard for some
Right.
people to get it in their minds or understand what it is that we do. So that brings me to my question of like, how do you talk about this? How do you concisely say what you do?
Mm. Yeah, that's a great question, and I've been thinking about that a lot because I'm currently building my website. I'm in right in the middle of it.
Mhm.
Building a website helped me really clarify my vision. But what I think what I'm at the core at the core of it, what I'm providing to people is unconditional positive regard. Simple. Yeah, and I'm offering intimacy in a safe container, which is unfortunately so rare in our culture because and emotion and intimacy includes the emotional side and the physical side, and with touch, as I mentioned before, it can often come in the form of violence. And people have had emotional intimacy in their lives, maybe, but that often comes in romantic relationships where there are entanglements and it could get sticky. And so, what I offer is emotional and physical intimacy in a safe container where there's no expectation of reciprocation. So, did that answer your
Yeah,
question? Yeah.
Yeah,
yeah.
Yeah.
absolutely. I'm curious, with the wide variety of ways that you connect with clients,
Mhm.
what did you like, for myself, I know there's a lot of crossover in
Mhm.
my work
Yeah.
where I say, like, every session might feel like a Cuddlist session, even if we're not under the Cuddlist code of conduct, right?
Right.
Because I do a variety of work,
Yeah.
right? But I can say that Cuddlist touches everything that I do in so
Mm,
many ways because I keep all of my sessions are client led, right? I've used the opening agreement in all of my sessions no matter what. It's
mhm.
more the code of conduct that becomes the differentiation between what kind of work am I doing. So I'm curious, how has having the Cuddlist training touched the other areas of your work?
Yeah, putting the client firmly in the driver's seat is such a core essence of what I do, and respecting their autonomy, their agency, and everything how everything is consent based. Right?
Mhm,
And then people often talk about boundaries, what they don't want. But what we don't do often enough in this society is what do you want? And so really tap into your desires. And so I help clients do that through all of my work and the different modalities that I do. You know, what makes you feel safe?
mhm,
And what do you want? And then it's this is not the case with everybody, but a lot of clients who come to me are people who have been in this caretaking, that have had caretaking tendencies and people pleasing, and they would sacrifice their own needs in order to cater to others' needs, and they've neglected their desires all their lives. So um, often clients are a little bit stumped when I say, what are you wanting in this moment? But it's a really important question. Um, Only when you can truly honor your own, um, tap into your own desires, you can also honor others and negotiate how you want to interact. Yeah, from that place.
yeah,
Right.
I'm a helper who I mean,
Mm.
I'm guessing most of us identify as helpers, right? I think that's what
Yes.
brings us
Yeah.
into this work, and I know for myself, learning how to not overgive
Hmm.
was so
Yeah.
important, and I still something I have to practice and catch myself sometimes because that's when that resentment feeling starts to pop up, right? And
Right.
so it's fun to get to practice it as a helper, to model to the helpers that come to us
Mhm.
that
Yeah.
you can be a helper and have really great boundaries and communicate
Yes.
and limits and, and have your own desires so that we can have our own buckets filled.
Right.
I always
Right.
experience it as 2 sides of this coin, and what I think that I wish I could, like, download into all the people pleaser, helper, like, maybe that, overgivers that I
Mhm.
see is there is a different kind of vulnerability there's a different kind of emotional intimacy that comes from sharing your own desires, sharing what
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
true with you, and for advocating for them. And that kind of emotional intimacy can often feel really reassuring to the
Mhm.
other person. So many of the folks who have that people pleaser tendency, I speak as a recovered or recovering, always
Mhm.
recovering people
Too.
pleaser.
Yeah.
The biggest impulse was it because I wanted that. I was so desperate for connection. If I said no, would I lose connection? If I set a
Right.
boundary that someone didn't like, would I lose connection? Right? Would they not like
Right.
me? Would I be bad? Right? There's
Yeah.
so much of that at the core of it. And it's so interesting how much closer all of my relationships are when I very clearly and compassionately, but
Right.
very directly communicate
Yeah.
this is exactly the roadmap into how to please me. This is
Mhm.
the roadmap into what I want because other people also want to give. And so receiving is
Right.
such a vulnerable and intimate and
Yes.
like daring, brave space
Right.
to go
And to
into.
know that you're deserving of that. Yeah, your
Mhm.
desires matter, you matter.
Or that you don't have to earn it.
Oof,
Right.
That's
oof.
the thing that
Yes.
I think that I've worked on the most is that I don't have to be the perfect girlfriend or the perfect wife or make myself indispensable, right?
Mhm.
I don't have to anticipate all of your needs. This was the survival mechanism from my childhood, right? And my
Yeah.
therapist years ago said, I think you've healed so much quicker because of your work, because you get to practice these things on such a regular basis with the people that are coming through your life. And I take, finding Cuddlist when I found Cuddlist. You talked about like how did you get into the work? And I know before we got on this call, you were like, how did y'all get into the work? And I was like, oh, we could talk about that.
Yeah.
Right. Like
Hear it.
I had a not a real healthy childhood as far as parents that were very oh, their communication style was just pretty either they weren't talking or they were shouting, right? There was
Mhm.
no I remember when I started working for Cuddlist and I worked really close with Madeline and Adam, the founders. I used to
Mhm.
refer to them as mom and dad because I
Mm.
got to watch them argue in a way that didn't require them to tear each other down. Like it was a whole new experience for me that mom and dad are fighting and they're not destroying each other.
Right.
Right? That was in my f I was 40 years old when I came to Cuddlist. That was a brand new experience for me.
Yeah.
So I ended up in an unhealthy marriage, of course, because I just replicated my parents' relationship, right?
Mm.
We got divorced and I didn't know what I wanted to do. And I knew I found like I kept following my path and I wanted to do something in hands-on sex ed. So I too wanted to work in sexual intimacy and Cuddlist came on the market and I was like, I could this will be my stopover. And then what I realized was that I was doing hands-on sex education without the sex part, right? It was like building a house. You've got to have a solid foundation. So
Yeah.
if your foundation is a little shaky, going to the sex isn't going to solve that.
Right.
Right? Learning how to communicate and have your boundaries and ask for what you want, all those things that, later, I'm sure Keely can say this better because Keely is now a Wheel of Consent facilitator certified.
Mm.
I
Mm.
think about Betty Martin in the push that you have to learn these skills outside of that sexual space because once you go to the sex, the automatic brain kicks in
Yeah.
to get the thing you want. And so it's cool to come back and I also identify as like I work in intimacy. I have different limits than
Mhm.
I've had times where I've worked of bigger spectrum of sexual intimacy. Now I'm back to like I'm just working on the foundation skills. You can work on the other stuff somewhere else.
Yeah.
But it is so like this is about building a new house from the ground up.
Mhm.
And if
Yeah.
you don't check that foundation, all that work you put into the upper floors isn't stable.
Yeah.
So that's how I got here was like
Mm.
I did the sex side. That's where I wanted to start. I thought that's where I wanted to start. I started at Cuddlist in reality, and I came back to Cuddlist and
Mm.
with some expansion of what I offer because of my background in surrogate partner therapy. But that's
Yeah.
my story. I love Keely's story though. So
Yeah.
like Keely's makes me very happy.
Beautiful. Thank you for
Which one?
sharing,
I feel
Michelle.
like
Yeah.
I feel like we got 8 different origin stories in some way. What I mean by that is when I finally got into this work after that, like, origin story at that time, my family came up to me and go, Keely, you've been doing this since you were like 6 years old. I go, what do you mean? And I forgot that when I was little, my older sisters would pay me a quarter per Scooby-Doo cartoon to do what we in our family called magic fingers, which was like drawing on their back or doing feather
Wow.
touch along their arms or giving them loving touch. And I was the
Mm.
little sister, and they would pay me a quarter so I could go get a gumball when we went to the grocery store, right? But per Scooby Doo cartoon, so like, Keely, you've been a professional toucher since you were a little kid. So
Mm.
I joke that that's one of my origin stories, but the true one is I'd graduated college, not in this field, though I'd taken psychology courses since high school. I took college credit psychology courses in high school. Was always fascinated by it, and when you were telling your story, Reina, earlier, it resonated. It hit so much because I always was like, okay, well, I want to do all something that feels so similar to therapy, but it was never quite right. I was like, well, I don't actually want to be a therapist because it felt cold. That's all I
Mhm.
could like. That was the line. It felt this feels cold. This feels stark. I don't think I'll be happy doing this, but I'm passionate about it. I want to. It's my special interest. I want to learn all about it. Right. And it
Mhm.
wasn't until the touch piece got added that it all clicked. But I'd moved to Chicago after college. I was isolated. I was alone. I was pretty touch deprived, and a friend of mine invited me to an event called Cuddle Party. And I heard that
Mhm.
phrase and I immediately got the ick and thought it was the grossest thing possible. I was like, I don't know why anyone would sign up to be groped for an hour.
Mhm.
Technically 4 hours. But uh clearly I was very mistaken by what the experience of that event was. And that was shown to me because she invited me again a couple more times, and I finally clicked that, like, she also removed a lot of the barriers. She was going to drive me, which in Chicago is premium because parking is terrible, and she was going to pay for my ticket. If we were uncomfortable in the first 5 minutes, she's like, I'll leave and I'll buy you lunch. Like, she removed all these barriers for me. And I figured, like, I know this person. This person is sane. This person, I've respect their opinion and their discernment. It can't be what I'm imagining. So I go to this cuddle party, and people who are aware of the nonprofit organization Cuddle Party, it is a structured workshop for an hour that teaches
Mhm.
skills for communication around boundaries and consent. It's real robust. It lasts for a full hour of just all this workshop, and then you get to use those skills for the next 3 hours to connect with other folks at
Mhm.
the at this event, right? And there's a facilitator there. They're helping people. They're coordinating. They're facilitating. Right? It's really structured. It's a great place to explore these kinds of skills. And in the first 30 to 45 minutes of that event, I am sobbing. I am an absolute mess in the kind of the best possible way. It was this huge
Mhm.
cathartic release because I don't think I, before that moment, had ever been in a space where anyone had explicitly told me, I want to hear if you are a nun.
Yeah.
I want that. And in fact, the culturally accepted response to anytime you get no is thank you for taking care
Thank
of
you for
yourself.
taking care of yourself. Yes. Yeah.
Hmm. And
Mhm.
that was just life changing. That was, and then the second that doubled up on that was I came from a very good Midwest family where you do not inconvenience other people with your messy emotions. So if you cry, go take care of that in the bathroom. Don't burden other people with you having a bad time. And in the
Yeah.
first 45 minutes, I'm crying and everyone is cool with it. In fact, that Madeline was the facilitator at that first event, and looked over at me, and she just simply gave me like a eyebrow raise and a nod, like a you good? And like I kind of shook my head yes, and then she goes, all right. And then it was no big deal. It was just like a making sure you know I'm available, and if you don't need me, you are not doing anything that needs to be fixed or changed. Or oof, my whole world
Mm.
exploded. And then after that, I was just hooked and learned everything I could about it, and realized it was all the missing pieces that I wanted. And I realized that
Mhm.
you could do it one on one. I could have this, but in like a concentrated setting where I could just like focus on a person and teach these skill. Oh, that was my origin story into it. And
That's
actually, the biggest result from that not just was launching a career, but in that first party was where I realized that I was in an abusive relationship, a domestic violence relationship,
mm,
because I had the
mm,
stark contrast of what does it feel like when someone wants and respects my no, and what it doesn't feel like. And I
right.
didn't have that stark comparison to feel what the difference was, and
Mm,
realize that at home I was not allowed to say no ever.
Yeah.
Um,
And if it's not safe to say no, then you're really not allowed to say no either, right? Like it's I have that background too of sexual coercion in my case that while I said yes to sex, it was because I couldn't say no to sex,
mhm,
right?
mhm.
That's not the same. Keely, I just have to tell you, I had this well of feeling come up in me when you talked about Madeline and the tears and that giving you that look. Oh, Madeline taught me that it was okay to cry too. Like I so grateful,
Mm.
so grateful.
It's what we teach our clients. That's one
Yeah,
of the biggest gifts our clients
yeah.
give us, is that moment of like, I haven't cried in front of anyone in so long. I'm so
Yeah.
Mhm.
glad you feel here, that it's
Yeah.
safe, and you know that there's nothing wrong with any emotion you bring. We've got guidelines around what actions we can do, right? But
Mhm.
every emotion is a part of you. It's a valid part of you. It's an important part of you that is welcome in this space. I think that's also what makes it so revolutionary, that in our profession, unlike talk therapy, we're not shying away from the conversation of falling in love.
Mhm.
Right.
Our
Mhm.
clients fall in love with us, and we,
Mhm.
in certain ways, absolutely love our
Mhm.
clients. And it's
Yeah.
not this big horrible taboo thing. We are relational,
Right.
and it's an extension of that. Every emotion is welcome. We simply have boundaries around our actions.
Mhm.
That
Yeah.
reminds me, we're coming
Yeah.
up on conference, Keely and I,
Hmm.
and a few other cuddlists. And I have my own version of this, but I've let Cuddlist take my design and we have our own Cuddlist version. But I really
Oh,
believe that love heals. And
yes.
I think it's so interesting with clients to have that conversation around what does love mean to you?
Mhm.
Right? Because I remember one of my clients, he's like, I want to tell you I love you. And I was like, you can tell me. He never told anybody that. He never heard it from someone else. And like, of course you love me, or of course I love you. Like I love everyone that walks in my office, or I wouldn't want to work with them. Like
Right.
that's the power of this is this space to just be loved. That unconditional positive
Mhm.
regard to me is the love,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
Yeah, ugh, that's my favorite part of this work.
I'm curious
Yeah.
how it
I get
shows
to
up in
love.
your work, Reina.
Sorry, say again?
How's it show up in your work, like navigating these
Yeah,
spaces?
I've had clients tell me that, you know, they're in love with me or that they really love me. And I love having the freedom to be able to say to them that I love them too. And I really mean it. I'm
Mhm,
not just saying it to be polite and to reciprocate. And that's something I wouldn't be able to do within a psychotherapy container. And I'm able to hold their hands and look at them in their eyes when I say that. And what is more authentic than that? Right?
yeah.
What do you
Yeah.
say to people who push back on that and say that either it's fake or like, what about the people who would say, oh, is that inappropriate, or is that not right for a professional relationship? Or the people who are like, I would never pay for that kind of a thing. What do you say?
Well, nobody knows what my internal experience is and I about me. And I
Uh-huh.
know that I genuinely love and care about each and every single one of my clients. So that is just my truth with a capital T. And if somebody is falling in love with me and they're becoming psychologically dependent on me, then we look at that because my goal is to have clients become familiar and be able to cultivate intimacy within a safe container with me and practice. I use it as a lab, as a playground to make mistakes and learn, and then take that out into their own life and lean on their support networks and develop more intimate relationships. So if they're solely looking to me for their
Mhm.
support, then there's a problem. So I directly address that with clients. But isn't what love is all about? What's that's what I live for, is to love and be loved. So
Mhm.
Yeah.
I
And what
think
a
in some ways
cool
we have such a bigger capacity, maybe not a bigger capacity, but we're interested in exploring our
yeah.
capacity for those feelings, so we're not shying away from them.
I
Yeah.
think we're trained different muscles, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I do think that's part of the muscle building for the clients is it's okay to love me. Like you said, I don't want you dependent on me. And one
Mhm,
of the kind of I don't like to use word rules, but one
mm,
of the limits I have with clients is if I see them not building their network outside of our space together, that's a flag for me that again, we have to address that. And I'm not interested in participating in being your sole provider.
mhm.
I want you to be able like I'm teaching you to fish. I don't want to be your whole food source. That
Right.
does not feel good. I want you to have expansive love that you can love me and love other people,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
It's not a limited resource. Spread
Mm,
that shit around, right? Like
right.
we have so much of it and so much capacity for it.
There you
Yeah.
mentioned about flags, and it makes you think of a client story of a time when I realized in sort of an unconventional way a little bit of that was happening, and we had a really rich discussion about it. And it came from me, I was doing a little traveling, and a regular client of mine, who we were doing some really important work and really like deep work, and I didn't really want to leave this person completely high and dry for I think it was going to be like 2 or 3 weeks that I was traveling.
Mm,
And so I was giving them some other resources, including other cuddlists in the area. I was like,
mhm,
"Would you like me to make an introduction? Like, would you want to have a session where we all have like a triadic model session is kind of how we call it, where we are all sitting together and we can kind of build some rapport and comfort." And the client said, "Oh no, I would never want to cheat on you like that with another professional. You're the
oh,
only person I would want to see." And I
mhm,
and it took me a minute, like, I didn't immediately respond with my most grounded answer because I knew that the sentiment was supposed to be very, like, sweet and kind, and especially in a world structured around, like, commerce, right, and competition, I understood that there was, like, a little bit of an undertone of, like, "Oh, no, I'd never go to your competitor,"
And
right?
not loyal.
Not loyal, right. There was a sweetness to the undertone, but also it felt wrong, right? It felt that there was a offness to it. And so we ended up having a really rich discussion and it flagged a little bit of that for me of like, oh, not just with other like intimate relationships with their life, I really need you to notice and view this as like, yeah, don't not dependent or not viewing it in that way because these other people are support. There's a love is not a finite resource.
right.
It is an abundant resource. It can come from
Yes.
a million different places and an infinite number of directions and should be shared with an infinite number of people.
Mhm.
Time is a limited
Yeah.
resource, but love is
Right.
not, and affection is not. So we had a
Right.
really good discussion about that, and it's one of those things that I now look for. And when I make referrals, if they're not interested in taking a referral, that now sparks me to have that conversation.
Yeah, yeah, beautiful. And then we are talking about connection and intimacy with ourselves and others. And but a lot of my clients also start thinking about connection to something larger than themselves. And I don't want to make this conversation too woo, but a connection to spirit. And
Mhm.
once we develop that intimacy within the cuddle therapy container, a lot of them kind of naturally go in that direction and they really start leaning into connection with higher power or consciousness or deeper nature. Well, there are many different words we could use for it. And that source is really literally infinite.
Mhm.
Yeah.
This
That
work
makes
changes you.
sense.
Yeah.
Like, you
Mhm.
can't come for a cuddle, even if it's just, like, you're thinking that's what you're like, "I'm coming just for some self-care and some affection or attention or touch."
Yeah.
It you can't engage in that space. I don't think it's possible to engage in that space and not change.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Like, it's
Mhm.
just
Yeah.
yeah.
I've had
Yeah.
so many people come out for the first time in session. I've had
Mm.
I've had multiple people, like, realize deep truths like that, and then go on to be it's that you put it so beautifully, Reina, earlier, of the unconditional positive regard. If there's truly unconditional positive regard somewhere, then maybe it can always be there, right? And then
Yeah.
if this person isn't just the source of it, if there's just one source of
Mhm.
unconditional positive regard, where else can it possibly be? And can I self-generate that? And a lot of
Yeah.
the times they learn that they can self-generate that unconditional positive regard. And so even the
Yes.
monumentally scary thing of telling a highly religious context family that you're gay is
Mhm.
is a thing that can feel accessible. Maybe not fully safe, but accessible because that unconditional positive regard is then self-generated in it, and it's not gonna go anywhere. It's still going
Right.
to be there.
Yeah, because you're not, your sense of worth is not dependent on what others think of you, believe about you, say about you.
Mhm,
You are coming out to them because you love themselves, not because you want to be accepted by them. That would be wonderful if it happens as a consequence. That's
mhm,
a huge bonus. But
mhm,
yeah, I see a lot of clients come in with really low self-esteem and
mhm,
yeah, lack of sense of worth. And yeah, I try to help clients look at where they're placing that locus of self-worth. Is it
mhm,
internal or is it external? And a
mhm,
lot of the times we look to others to give love when ultimately you can, like you said, Keely, self-generate and reparent ourselves to tap into that deep well that we have. And
mhm,
Yeah.
mhm,
capacity for love is infinite, truly.
I remember a therapist saying to me, like, "Your partner is your mirror. You're learning how he looks at you so that you can look at yourself in the same way, and eventually you won't need him to show you how you're valued, right? You will see that for
Right.
yourself." And I think of that with the client also, is we're
Mhm.
that first place. But it's an interesting shift that slowly happens where I love working with inner child stuff. That's the language I use around IFS. Like, that's my version of IFS, is I'm totally down for the inner children. And and something I find myself having to say is, "I'm here to comfort your inner child, but you need to learn how to do that." That's the progression of healing here,
Mhm.
is you learning how to hold your inner child. I can do it, but it is so much more effective and efficient, and ultimately what is needed is you to be able to hold that inner child, and I think that is the self-worth piece.
Yeah.
mhm, mhm.
Absolutely. Yeah, and you mentioned oh, sorry, Keely, go ahead.
Oh, no, it's a little bit of a deviation, so I'd rather you say your thing and I'll remember it. Go ahead.
Oh, okay, good. Yeah, and you mentioned, IFS, Michelle, but,
For those
I
who don't
love
know, IFS is internal family systems. It's parts work. Go ahead.
yeah, and I love what you were saying earlier, Keely, about, how you were able to really, really cry in that cuddle party, and yeah, Michelle too, and where I love being able to create a space where all emotions, and not just emotions, but all people's desires are welcome. And there's just so much people are we're all walking around with so much shame because we exile parts of ourselves, oh, our sex, my, especially for male bodied people, a lot of them feel that their sexuality is dangerous because it
Mhm.
could harm people. And if there's trauma, there could be shame, and lurking around in the realm of sexuality too. Or if they get anger is a dangerous emotion. And then this is especially true for female bodied people, but just in across the board, everybody carries around that belief. And There aren't that many spaces where literally every part of you is welcome. And so yeah, even things like sexual desire often comes up. You know, people get aroused, sexually aroused during a cuddle session, and there's nothing wrong with that. That's a natural part of being human. And sexuality is something to be it's sex that's life force, and it's something to be celebrated. You know, what you do with that is a different question, and it could harm people depending on how you choose to act upon it. But having that desire, there's no desire that we have that is inherently wrong. So if there's a desire and you're noticing it, let's talk about it. And tears are welcome. People come and want to scream and have that emotional release, and I welcome that. And also, healing can be really joyful and playful and fun, and people giggle, and I sometimes wrestle with clients,
Mhm.
and that's also part of the healing.
I have a
So,
great story about a client who came to see me who, unrelated to the work that we were doing, but because we always do a body check-in, had said, like, was having a lot of gastrointestinal distress and
mm,
really uncomfortable in their stomach and tummy and with digestion and whatnot. And we're like, okay, so we'll noted, just so cuddle positions, blah blah, just checking in with the body, right? And one of the things that we were working on in session with this particular person was allowing them to feel that chronic people pleaser, helper profession, she was a social worker,
mhm,
and um, getting really intense pressure or almost bullied at work and thinking like, okay, well, I have to take this, I have to be like constantly like, but we were going to being able to feel anger, and so got my mat out, we got pillows, and I was like, okay, we're gonna practice what it feels like to have a safe place to feel some of that. So we, through a progression, we hit the pillows, and I was like, okay, we can hit the ground as hard as we can, and blah, blah. So we had that whole like cool section. Had a moment where she finally let go, wailing with the pillow, and then like this cry and collapse and being held, and like beautiful cathartic moment.
mm, mm.
And then she says, "Oh wait, I excuse me for a minute," and has to run to the restroom, and did not have gastrointestinal distress from that point on for like the several months of working with her until we stopped working together because she moved. And it was like, wow, the body friggin' knows. It
Body knows.
absolutely knows. And to
Yeah.
have it be such an immediate progression, like
Mhm.
like, "Oh, terribly stopped up. Now I can feel anger. No, not stopped up anymore." It was very wild to see that in the moment. Like, okay, it's safe.
Amazing.
Have either of you tried a rage room? I've taken 2 clients to rage rooms
Mm.
and then done, like, cuddle sessions afterwards to help process. Has
I have a
anybody else
friend
tried
who's
that?
into it. Yeah,
I
so I
haven't.
know a little bit about it, but I haven't tried it myself. But
Well,
it's something similar,
yeah,
yeah.
my pro advice on this is check out the space ahead of time. I've been to 2 different spaces,
Mhm.
and one of them allowed me to be in the rage room with my client, and one of them didn't have a big enough room for that, and so they had a rule against that. I think it's helpful to be in the space
Mm,
and model and participate with the client so that they feel, uh, permission to really get into it.
Mm,
Um, so yeah, my tip is to check around in your area. If you're in a big metropolitan area, you're gonna have more than one option and ask about those things. Um, Also, like, not all these places are super, body positive as far as inclusive, and we ran into some issues around their equipment not fitting. So they have, like, coveralls and things like that. Just things to kinda get ahead of as a professional that I wish I'd thought of ahead of time. So I might as well pass this information on to other people, but check out the space first rather than
yeah,
showing up, fresh. I know where I would go back to out of the 2 places. One was a much better experience than the other.
thank you, and there are virtual rage rooms too. People
Really?
line and really unleash their
Like a VR situation or
no, just, Zoom meetings.
oh, okay.
Yeah, yeah, so you
Like
can
a
do it
verbal rage room.
from home, yeah,
That's
yeah.
That's fun.
interesting. My brain has just went into, like, all sorts of, like, idea mode is just popping off for me right now.
Mm,
Well, and
mm,
that brings me to or that reminds me of what the reaction that people have when I say I do virtual cuddle therapy sessions. And it's like, "Well, how is that even possible? How is a virtual rage room possible?" But there's actually tons of ways to adapt to make things accessible and convenient and be like somatic involvement can be done independently. We just got to get creative with it. Yeah.
Yeah. Where there's a will, there's a way,
Mhm.
right? Like, people ask me, "Do you work virtually?" I tend not to because I like to touch people. That's clearly why I'm into this work, right?
Mhm.
Um, but if there's limits, there's limits.
Mhm.
And if we can find a way to meet each other to wherever like I don't I have limits to how I want to show up.
Mhm.
Right? And if we're compatible and the client is looking for something that I'm offering, awesome. And if not, guess what? We have this huge community of people that, at least for me, my experience in the cuddle world, especially through Cuddlist, has been such a community-based experience. It's not
mhm,
a lot of my personal journey has been getting past this space of scarcity
Mhm.
mhm,
and living from a place of abundance.
yeah,
And I really appreciate my experience in the cuddlist world of like, yeah, it's so nice to have a client that's seen so and so here or so and so there, and it's not a competitive nature around it, that there's plenty to go around.
Mhm. I love
yeah,
it when my clients see other practitioners, and they tend to get different things from different people. I think
Mhm,
it's fun when they tell me how it's different.
yeah,
I had one
mhm,
client who regularly saw me and one of my colleagues in town, and I loved the description because he said that the experience with me was like all of my energy and all of the focus was in how we touched. Like if my hand was running along his arm, he could feel almost like the electricity of all the energy and affection and care flowing through the fingertips and into or like where we were touching, right? It was like very
mm,
concentrated, is what he
mm,
said. He said being with this other person is like kind of always being enveloped in a blanket.
mm,
Like it's
mhm,
generalized. Like there's this overall feeling of the similar kind of affirmation, right? And I was like, that's wild. What? I want to go get a different. And he's like, I love both of them for very different reasons.
mm,
yep.
mhm. Yeah, beautiful. And the reason why I love this form of therapy, cuddle therapy, is that when two people are touching each other and co-regulating, oxytocin is released and
Mhm,
the nervous system is regulated and relaxed, then people are able to be a lot more vulnerable.
Mhm,
And in that space is a really potent container for healing. And
mhm,
people
yeah.
are able to be authentic. And sometimes memories come up from childhood that they had long forgotten. Big emotions come up. And yeah, so what we're doing, even though the name is, the label is cuddle therapy, but the work is a lot deeper,
mhm,
often. Not always, but it really can be.
mhm.
And that's the area that I'm very interested and passionate working in.
I'm
Yeah.
curious if you have learned anything about yourself doing this work, maybe that you didn't expect to learn.
Mm. I just have an infinite capacity for touch and love, and I mean it. To this day, I have never felt, oh, I am touched out, I am cuddled out, I can't take anymore, or there's just too much love. It's just love is infinite form of energy, and to me, it just the more I receive, the more I can give, and it just keeps going. And for me, it's the same with touch. I don't know how it is this way with me, but
I have
um,
to ask, are you an introvert or an extrovert?
that's a question that I've been asking myself for a while. I'm an ambivert. I'm both.
Sure.
Yeah, it's a spectrum, and I'm somewhere in the middle. But I when touch is involved, I am an extreme extrovert.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think I'm just, like, noticing myself go, "Well, I mean, there are times I'm peopled out, but
Mm,
if a person wanted to be with me and not talk to me,
mhm.
I don't think I would say no to the physical contact. I might have to make adjustments. Maybe I'm
Yeah.
playing in my head as like, what would that feel like? And I'm thinking, okay, so maybe I wouldn't want talking. Where normally in a cuddle session, we have lots of conversation generally. Most of my clients want to talk. Um, I might not want repetitive motion, but just a very firm grounding touch. So I'm just
Mhm.
noticing where would I be a yes? Because my immediate like, oh no, I do get peopled out, but I'm peopled in the talking sense, not necessarily in the
Mm,
contact sense. It's interesting to
yeah,
think about.
that
Mhm.
may be the same with me. Yeah. How about you, Keely?
It you were saying it, and it could have been coming from my mouth. It 100% could have. I've had partners before who were like, "Aren't you tired of it?" No, but I also resonate with what you're saying. Like, I have a limit with how many clients I can take a day because
Mhm.
I can't give that. There's a limit to the unconditional positive regard and attention I can switch to different people. Right,
Right.
because it takes a lot of energy, it takes a lot of
Mhm.
focus. I am
Yeah.
giving 100% of my attention and intention in each session,
Mhm.
there will be fatigue on that, but no, my body doesn't ever get touched out. I always want touch. 100%.
I don't context switch well. So I think for me, like if I'm working out of town where I get to see clients back to back to back to back, I can do that for quite some time. It's
Mm,
when I'm home and I have to flip from Michelle the cuddler to Michelle the administrator to Michelle the dog walker and the feeder
mm,
of the foods and all the life that has to show up. That is harder for me than if I go into a city. I regularly travel for work. I'll go
mm,
in and I'll work nonstop basically for 2 or 3 full days
mhm,
and or go to a conference and be on from, 7 in the morning to 10 at night sometimes, and I'm good. The minute that ends, the come down hits, and then
Mm.
I go into self-care mode, right? So I build in those times to recover from the multiple days of work or the multiple days at conference.
My
yeah.
love, that is hyper focus.
I know. Yep, that's me.
You're a
That's absolutely me.
Hyperchickies.
Yep. Yeah.
Well, I've really, really, really enjoyed this conversation. This has been awesome. I'm so grateful that you
Me
came on and
too.
chatted with us.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It's such an honor, and I'm so joyful that I finally got to really talk to you at
Mhm.
length.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Where can we find you online? Like, people listening at home,
Yeah.
where can they find Reina?
Yeah, so yeah, I mentioned I'm developing this website. It will be ready very soon. Embracedbyreina.com. Yeah,
I
and
love
my name
that.
is spelled Reina.
I love that. Well, thanks
Yes.
for being here. I mean, I did your certification for
Yeah.
Cuddlist back in
Yes.
the old process, the legacy process, right? And I was really excited to have you here and get a little bit more time with you. So it's such a pleasure to have you in our community. Um, I think we have a lot of overlap in our umbrella of our work, and I just love how inclusive this work can be because it can go in so many different directions.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
I love that diversity. So thanks for letting us know more about your work.
Yeah, I love
And
how Cuddlist celebrates that. There's the Cuddlist container, but then, yeah, like the big umbrella. And yeah, I'm really
I'm
interested to,
I'm proud of our world because it wasn't
yeah,
always so inclusive.
you're
And it
right.
is such a more inclusive space as we've
Mm,
all grown and
mm,
understood like that we can all hold very different boundaries in different spaces.
right. Yeah.
Just like with anything, just like with all of the foundational skills you talked about of consent, of communication, of boundary setting, it's just clarity of communication. When are we doing what? And what do we agree on? That's
Right.
the key. We can do so
Mhm.
much, so many different things as long as we have those pieces. This piece is when we're doing cuddlist work, but this moment we're doing this different kind of intimacy work. And the only reason why the distinction is important is because we want to know what both people are signing up to and consenting to wholeheartedly. And all of the work is important. Every different space is important. It's just the clarity of what we're doing when.
Yeah, exactly. And I so appreciate all the advocacy and the work that you're doing to bring credibility and legitimacy to this work. Finding Cuddlist has been an absolute game changer for me. Yeah, it's really transformed my life, and it's you're helping me live my dream
Mm.
of providing embodied intimacy to people. So, and healing myself as I help heal
Mhm.
others too. So,
Absolutely.
so grateful for you both.
We hope you join us at a conference that we're gonna attend in the future. If you're bridging those worlds or helping us in the
Yes,
sea of those
I
worlds.
I would love that.
Yeah.
Yes, please invite me. Keep me posted.
Yes, absolutely. And um, we'll continue to do those things and continue to connect. But for now, for today, just again,
Mhm.
thank you one last time. And thank everyone who's listening. Thank you for being here to hear us have these conversations and celebrate our work with us. Because anyone who listens in and tunes in is doing their small bit to promote this work, and I really, really, really appreciate it. And as always, as we end, we always want to welcome them to listen back next time, and until then, big
Big
hugs and
hugs if you want them.
thank you so much.